What I really love is property, is finance, it's money. I would love to be able to just like do this full time because, girls like money.
Girls like money.
Welcome to Slice, Property Made Possible. We're a platform on a mission to reduce barriers to home ownership. This podcast is a safe space for our community to learn together and build the confidence required to start on their property journey. When you're ready to start, head along to slicetobuy.com and sign up for your free dashboard.
Welcome back to another episode of Slice Your Property podcast. Today we are joined by, actually I need to double check this, Dani Paim.
Oh, you can say Dani Paim.
Dani Paim.
Oh, that's good.
Hey, nailed it. Dani has been engaging with us via the Slice Instagram and we've been supporting some of her clients through the platform. But I'm really interested in hearing more about your first home journey and what you're, obviously you've moved into the financial and property space, but it sort of started as your own personal first home buying journey. So what can you share about that and also maybe a little bit about where you've come from?
Yes, no, thank you for having me. I think, like everyone else, the passion starts with you and then that just becomes a mission that you want to share with everyone else. So for me, my journey started really early when I was 18, and it's a bit, classic that I just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then I thought...
It's a great book.
Oh my God, what great book, because I originally come from Brazil and just the environment I was in and the mindset that I was in, it did have a lot of scarcity coming from parents that they actually divorced because of money issues.
And that sort of mirrors what's in the book in a way, right? He's got 2
100%.
dads over in Hawaii. One is a poor dad or just has a more scarcity mindset when it comes to, in a government role, just living paycheck to paycheck versus the rich dad who's more sort of creating a passive income and opportunity to grow his wealth without being, I guess, clocking in on that 9 to 5.
Yeah, and I think it's just back then when the book has been released, many people were just focused on the hustle, working the 9 to 5, and then just having that new opportunity, that new vision. I was like, okay, so I don't have to struggle like my parents did. There are other options for me. So I just really made that my ticket to get out of that situation.
It's honestly a mindset shift, right?
It's so much.
90% of the book has so many great anecdotes, but 90% of it is actually just a shift of mindset of not having to follow the status quo, actually changing from that scarcity mindset to that abundance mindset and being open to opportunities.
Yeah, and I think we sometimes underestimate the power of mindset. Even like with first home buyers, when we want to buy a property, we think, oh, it's just too hard or it's not going to happen. But there are many different ways that you can achieve that goal. And unless you know the right people, you talk to someone that has done it, you don't think it's possible. And I was definitely in that, setting back then when I was 18 years old. So I was like, okay, so if this guy is talking about this, I'm sure I can manage to do that.
And also you've got 40 years to figure it out. You're so young, you're like, okay, this guy's quite old and he's given me all of his knowledge. So, I've got, surely I can take something from this and build my own thing.
Yeah. And I think many people probably can relate to that book.
Yeah.
I know that I have talked to so many different people. It's like for me it was the same. And I know it has changed since then, the strategies and the approach. But for me it was just
the overall kind of, ethos of the book has much remained the same though.
Yeah. I think I would say it's pretty much all that I need is just shifting the mindset that I was in to see that I could do more. So
because I think the reality is we all take so much from our parents. We're like sponges and we just soak it up, and that their mindset then becomes our mindset. So you sort of quite often have to undo some of the work that might have been done or some of the financial lessons that you learned from them to actually progress in a different way.
And it's so hard because there's actually research that shows that pretty much until the age of 7, it's like your brain, it's being hypnotized by everything that your parents teach you, which is quite scary. So yeah, you're guilty. No, it's horrible. They definitely like always trying to do the best that they can with what they have.
Yeah, but
I think it's
often
just
like
asking.
yeah, but the way to move forward is obviously to build on that, which can take new, like you can't do the same as what's always been done. Like often when that situation improves or they set you up for success with education or whatever it might be, then you need to actually deploy new strategies because your circumstances and your environment and your opportunities have changed.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
what does that look like for you? Obviously you moved to New Zealand.
Yeah, so actually my first property, just back to your first question, I bought in Brazil when I was 19. So after reading the book, I was like, okay, I need to find a way, but I don't have enough money. I only had about 1,000 New Zealand dollars to buy a property, like for deposit. And it's like, I'm not going to really be able to do anything here.
Yeah, what was the average kind of deposit over there at the time?
Yeah, it would be about 10.
Yeah.
10, yeah. So it's like 10 times more of like what I already had. And then I decided, okay, let me look around and start asking the questions. And I realized there was a government scheme, very much like the first home buyers scheme here in New Zealand, that if I were to buy a property in a lower social area, in a new development, they would actually support me. So I actually used my Kiwi Saver in Brazil as
Oh, really?
part
Your
of the
actual
deposit.
Kiwi Saver?
Yeah, not
No,
here.
it's
in
like
New
a
Zealand,
Brazilian version of
Brazilian
Kiwi Saver. I was
version
like,
of
how
Kiwi
did you get
Saver.
that out? Yeah.
Imagine if that was possible.
No, and you haven't even moved to New Zealand yet. Sorry, I'm all over the show.
No, that's
but
good.
yeah, so you're still in Brazil and you had like a Kiwi Saver similar sort of scheme that you
Yeah,
leveraged.
exactly. A similar sort of scheme. So I probably had about 3,000 there, and then I had about 1,000 saved. But because I was buying through this program, the deposit was also smaller.
Nice.
So then I managed to buy the first home, which was a new build, and then it took like 12 months to finish. So that was like my first ever property. But just coming from like Brazil, where everyone is, it's just harder to get a property there. Even like same here as here in New Zealand, but your first property, everyone will look at you as like, wow, how have you done it?
Yeah, and it's the income, right, relative to the
income.
to the price
Yeah.
of everything.
Yeah.
So before that as well, were you living at home or flatting, renting? Like what did that look like?
Oh, I was definitely living at home.
Yeah.
Lucky me. If I could, I would be living with my parents right now because we all know how expensive rent and housing is.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky. Yeah. So when I moved to New Zealand was the first time that I was out of my parents' house, and I was 21 when I arrived here.
Oh, so when you bought that property in Brazil as well, you didn't necessarily live in it?
No, I didn't live in it. It was actually
Like an
empty for a little while. And then, yeah, I couldn't really rent. It's very similar to the schemes that we have here. But then when I came to New Zealand, I was able to rent it and generate an income from it.
Nice. Hence the rich dad, poor dad, passive income piece.
Totally.
Yeah, amazing. And so that's a big move as well, all the way to little old New Zealand.
I know.
What drew you here?
Yeah, it's crazy, because I think when I was about 18, I was working at Dell Computers, it is a global company, and it was the first time I was exposed to different cultures. And then I think one of my directors, he was from India, and I realized, well, if I want to grow and if I want to succeed in anything that I do, I need to learn how to speak English, because he actually came to Brazil. He was talking to everyone. I was like, just smiling, pretending I understood what he was talking about, and I had no idea. So that's like the first trigger. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here and just, go to another country, learn how to speak English. But my intention was always to stay here. So I looked around, and New Zealand was beautiful, it was warm, and I thought, okay, this is the country I want to go to. And that's when I started like, okay, how can I actually get there? But yeah, long story short, I arrived in September 2015.
It was 8 years ago.
8 years ago. I can't even believe it. Feels like it was yesterday. And I couldn't speak any English. So I came here, I was like, I don't know. It felt like I didn't have a personality as well, because I couldn't express myself.
Yeah, that's hard.
yeah.
Like not feeling connected or in tune with other people when you're talking.
Yeah, but I think it was actually a great strategy, because I was forced to learn by just being around other people. So when I arrived, I was just working hospitality for the first year. And it's funny because people would order different things and I would just pretend I understood and I would get the orders wrong all the time.
You're like, yes. And it's like, I asked for a flat white, not a mocha.
I know, exactly. It's actually funny. There's a story that there was this client that wanted like a cup of tea. And I thought it was a
That does sound
cappuccino.
like, even when you say that, that does sound quite aggressively Kiwi. Cup of tea?
Cup of tea? I was like, okay, cappuccino. And then I brought the cup and she's like, this is not a cup of tea. Oh, okay, I get it now. But obviously at the time was horrifying.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, go and do it. But everything worked out well. And then from there, after a year, my English was starting to be good enough to go and try a job. And my career at the time was technology. And that's how I managed to really stay in New Zealand for the next 4 years.
Interesting. So you sort of took a step back to take a step forward. Like you just focused on language as being, and identified that was key to where you wanted to go on your career journey. Because that's quite hard to go back, if you've been working in tech and you've got this interest in property or, finance, whatever it might be, to then go, I'm going to go and work in hospo for a year. But did you see it as a bit of a vacay as well, or was it quite intense actually? I imagine it wasn't easy learning the language.
It was not easy. As I said, like many times I felt like I couldn't express myself and I would just get the words wrong. But I did a lot of pretending at the beginning. Again, I was like just smiling. So if I would just read the room, if everyone was quiet, I would be quiet. If they were smiling, I would smile. But then when I got the job, was more like
that's out of a book, Sapiens, which is actually probably my favorite book. But
I have to read it.
Yeah, it's great. It's very scientific, but I love it. It talks about how as humans, we collaborate and we communicate, and that's what makes us, superior to other animals or species, to other species. And so, essentially it's that ability to adapt, to communicate and to collaborate at scale that creates, opportunity for us. And ironically, technology is another tool that does that. It's all about collaboration, communication and scale, which means it is very powerful. AI. No.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm like, my mind's rambling. But to circle back, there's that piece around actually the importance in the book of being able to adapt and fit in within your species to survive. Like that's one of the key survival instincts. So it's just interesting hearing you say, I used to just be quiet when the room was quiet. I used to smile when the room would smile. Like you're adapting to the environment and just hoping that that's enough, even though you can't necessarily do the communicate thing.
Yeah.
You can do the facial communication.
Yeah, and the body expression and everything else because I think I love that concept because for me, going through that journey, I just built such a tough skin for everything else in my life. So sometimes you have to go and strip everything else, your personality and everything that you know, and do something completely different. And that's when you're going to learn about yourself more.
You're going to grow,
You're going to grow,
It's going to be painful though.
It is.
Well, good on you. And so now you moved back into tech. Did you ever come across the Migrants in Tech Association in New Zealand?
No.
I was just thinking about you and I was like, that's here. It's run out of the grid sometimes, and that would be like your community. There's a lady, Pauli, that runs it, and she's amazing. So I'll connect you to after this as well.
Love that.
But there's not as many networks as I think we need for the amount of migrants we're getting coming into New Zealand, or new New Zealanders we're getting coming into New Zealand, over 100,000, and how are we supporting them with, networking, with communicating, collaborating, education, jobs, and housing.
And just finding your community too, so you feel like you belong. Because, I was just doing technology because that's I actually did business and then I went into technology, but I always had like this side hustle and passion for property. And I was like, how can I get into the property world or the finance world?
So what does that look like now that you're in New Zealand?
And
you've learnt the language.
Learned the language. I can speak
Cup of tea.
Sort of. I think for me it was just, as everyone else had that moment during COVID. So I was working there in technology, and then I decided, like, well, what I really love is property, is finance, it's money. I would love to be able to just, like, do this full time because, girls like money.
Girls like money.
I was like, okay, how can I do this? So I just started small, and then again, I've pivoted completely from what I was doing and the career I had built, and I decided to work in a property management company because probably it was just like the simplest job I could do, or the entry-level job that I could do related to property.
And obviously there's, it's a different system from country to country as well. So even when you went through that buying process in Brazil, it looks slightly different here, I imagine.
God, so different. I've learned so much, and I know that we always say, oh, you need knowledge, you need to learn as much as you can, but nothing compares to going ahead and just doing it and buying it. Because I always say, when I'm giving advice to my clients or when I'm helping someone, during their buying process, it's just there are things that you will learn that I can't really explain to you or give you advice. You just have to go through the process, and I'll be here to support you because it's just how it is. Right?
Yeah, we have a course now, and it's actually really practical. The reason being, and I think we need to now release another course, which is probably a little bit for those people that are really early on. We've had some people do the course that are really early on, though, and still enjoy it. But it's our home buyers course, and it's actually almost a simulation of this is what it's like when you buy the property.
That.
So you and I will engage at one point as well, and you'll be pretend negotiating with me.
Oh, that's so good.
And seeing what you can secure the property in question for.
Yeah.
So it's a very hands-on version, and then that takes you go straight from there into buying the property. But I agree, I think there's some things you just won't learn until you start actually, undergoing the process of buying, as much as we try and kind of give that education where possible.
Yeah, and I love that strategy because when you buy a house and you put that under due diligence, you usually have those 10 to 15 days, to go unconditional or sign off the deal. And I can tell it doesn't matter how many times you do it, it does create a lot of anxiety. And every time is different. So having someone...
And every auction creates anxiety without a doubt.
I know.
Hate them.
It's actually addicting just to watch them and get people beating higher and higher. It's whoa, this is
when you're not watching, when you're bidding, it's awful. When you're watching, it's mesmerizing.
It's like a movie. It's go, go, go.
So it's like Wolf of Wall Street up in there.
Yeah.
I used to work in foreign exchange, and it was bid, offer, bid, mine, mine, yours, and lots of yelling. And I was that's kind of what it feels like, except those people are professionals, operating in that room. Whereas as a first-time buyer, you go into an auction and it's
scary.
It's daunting,
Yeah.
So property management, you moved into there and kind of started to learn about the process here in New Zealand as well. And where did that take you?
Yeah, so during COVID, I was already about 25. But before that, when I was working still, I was just saving every penny that I had to buy more property. So when I was 23, I actually bought my second property back in Brazil, which I thought was a great idea. And I do regret doing it. And I always say, there's no journey that's smooth. But it's okay because you're never going to make all the perfect decisions.
And you're going to learn as you go.
You'll learn as you go.
What was it, though, that,
I just think I could have waited because back then I didn't have my residency here. So I couldn't buy property in New Zealand. I thought, I'm going to buy something in Brazil, bring the money back, and then buy something amazing here. But since, COVID hit and everything went down, so I still have the property. I didn't solidify the losses.
Yeah, but you can't time the market, and you weren't to know that.
Yeah.
So, if the market had gone up in Brazil and you'd moved with the market, that would have been the best thing to do.
Oh,
so,
exactly.
No one has a crystal ball.
No.
The other mistake or piece that I wanted to bring up, I don't want to call it a mistake unless you do, but you worked with you lost some money as well working with a property advisor.
Yeah, it was actually a big course. So they had this huge seminar. They came from UK, and they were selling this 3 days seminar that you go there, and they tell you everything, how easy it is to make money in property. So basically all you have to do is buy a new property, renovate, and then you go again and again and again. And I was so sold. I thought I just want to do anything to speed my journey up and to get the things that I want. So that was alone was like about $3,000. And then they would just call you at the back of the room and say, hey, you have to sign up now. The course is $50,000 and you need to come up with the money. And they would even tell you, like, just call your credit card.
Predatory. That's really predatory behavior.
Very. And I was like brainwashed. I was like, yes, I'm going to do this. And my partner is very rational. It's like, nah, this is crazy. I was like, no, I'm doing this. We're going to get this. Well, then what happened? The company just went bankrupt and I pretty much lost my $50,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Like, I know that there can be value in courses, but you know, our course is $199 to learn about property and investing in property. Yeah. So I think, I mean, you've got to be careful out there and do your research. And you got to, and as you said, the biggest learning you can do is actually by buying and executing on the property, which is why we don't try to make that much money through our course. We try to actually help you execute. So most of our paid services are services you require to buy a home, i.e. working with a lawyer, getting your conveyancing done, getting your due diligence done. They're all like actionable services that you have to complete to own property. Yeah. So, I mean, that's something I'm super passionate about, but that's wild. And I'm sorry that happened to you, but also, you know, another lesson, I guess, another just lesson. A really expensive one.
And that's the thing, like when you go and you read all those beautiful books, or you can see so many different influencers online that they have different opinions, but you have to go out there and just give it a try, but also have support from the professionals, so the mortgage broker, the lawyers, and everyone else, and then you can define what your goal is and you can achieve. But at that point, I was just like, okay, I have 2 properties. I paid $50,000 in this course. There's no way I'm going to stop now. I have to make this work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a shame you didn't put that $50,000 towards a deposit.
More property.
I know. But, you know, I think that's a thing. And sometimes, you know, there are some opportunities to get that really hands-on support when purchasing, but anything that's costing $50,000 is taking money away from a deposit. So you've got to balance that out and think, how much should I be putting into learning versus, you know, executing? And that's why on our platform, I am ringing on about it, but this rings true, is that, we actually try to take as little from education. We do this podcast for free. You get free home buyer software, free ebooks, which are based on my expertise with 10 years in law and banking. And it's because we actually want you to get into the property. So then we, you know, make money when you actually buy the property. Yeah. But that's something that can sit with you a lot better, I think, because it's like you've achieved your outcome. You know?
If you did exist back then, you would have changed my life, because I could have, as you said, applied that money. And it's just that thing that you need support. You don't know what you're doing. And a lot of immigrants, as you said, arrive here. And even Kiwis, like, we don't understand the whole process of just buying a property. Who do you need to talk to? Who is a mortgage broker? Do I need a lawyer? Do I not need a lawyer? And I love that you're just providing that foundation so people feel empowered to take action. It's not about a specific strategy. It's about
it's
the
not
process.
One strategy that's going to make you rich next month and it doesn't cost $50,000 kind of thing.
Thanks.
But hey, that's it's a core learning. And how have you kind of, I guess, moved forward after that experience? Because I imagine it was a bit traumatizing.
It was traumatizing, but at the same time, as I said, I just decided I would make this a motivation to continue going. So I just started, because I'm still am, but I'm trying to balance, like, hustle with balance at this stage. But I was working like all the hours possible, making all the money that I could to build up for a deposit. So there were like weeks I was working like 70 hours, doing overtime. So I managed to save about $180K.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay. And then I got my residency. Yay! Still have to pinch myself. And then I decided, okay, now it's time to buy. But when I was ready to buy and I had the deposit was just June 2025, just after COVID first hit, and the market was going crazy.
Yeah, it was hard to know because everyone thought it was going to contract, but then people didn't spend on travel and they ended up buying. Yeah,
So it's a bit unusual. I think that just has changed the natural property cycle that you usually have within every
Over
8
that
to 10
10 year,
years.
yeah.
But then I had really set criteria, and I think it's probably like a tip that I can give to anyone that's want to buy their first home. Keep in mind that your first home is not your forever home, because if you have that in mind, it's going to take you probably 10 years more for you to buy the property.
And
you
at
have
which
enough.
point, like we keep talking about this, but at which point, you know, the price of that property
Will go
moves
up.
further and further away from you because your income quite often is not growing at the same rate that the housing market is.
That's it.
So you've got to move with the market, and you can do that by getting in
as early as you can. And the
So
first
you
one
bought-
is the hardest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. So
And where did you buy?
I buy in Westgate, and then, as I said, I had a really set criteria that I wanted a property that I could turn into a home and income, that had
Nice.
a lot of a land that I could subdivide in the future, enough bedrooms that I could sublet to have borders to help me pay the mortgage. So that's what I'm still doing to this day. It's me and my partner. We live in the basement, and then we have 3 flatmates in the main house upstairs.
Still hustling, you know. You're
still
not taking the main
hustling.
house.
I know, not yet. Sometimes I get to a point like I would love to just have a really nice house, but I know that my goal is just right now keep investing. So right now I'm happy where I am right now, because everything has changed in the last 2 years. Serviceability, now it's harder for you to get a loan. The deposit as well for investment properties have changed from the 2-3 years ago. So I do have a plan, but I don't really, as it's just like, for me, the important thing is just building that foundation so I can achieve that so-called financial freedom that I did think I would do at 30, which probably is not very realistic. And that's the thing, the plan changes as you go.
And you have to adapt in the same way that you did by smiling when other people smiled.
Smile. Yeah. And then, but it was a great deal. So I bought it in 2020, and then in 2022, I already had enough capital growth, which is like the value of a property goes up, you know, and then you can use the equity to buy another one.
Difference between the loan and the money that is yours in your property.
That's it. And then I managed to get another new build in Mangere. And yeah, so right now I have about 4 properties.
Woohoo.
But I wish I had 10. Donations, no.
Donations for my
Thank
5th
you.
property. I don't think you're going to
Yeah.
find that sort of support in this audience.
I know.
Dani. But hey, you've hustled and you've worked really hard, so you know you deserve to be proud of yourself. And whilst that goal, you know, as you move closer and closer to it, it's easy to look forward and go next this. You know, stop and
Yes.
think about how far you've come, because it's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
all the way from Brazil with your $1,000 to 4 properties and hustling towards that. And that 180,000 that you saved, did that help with residency? Because I know quite often like the balance that you have can help you get residency.
Unfortunately not really. Yeah, the residency and how I got it was just also another long story, because when I arrived, I had 1 visa, and then I had to find a job that would
give you a
be on a
visa.
shortage list that would give me a visa. So because I was working in technology, thankfully, I was able to get that, and then I almost like had no visa, and then it worked out, and then they managed to give me the visa. But it's just like throughout those 5 years, there is a lot of anxiety involved that at any time I might
might
need
get
to
booted.
Yeah, boot it and like go back home. Your dream is over, Cinderella. I was like, oh no, but yeah.
So you've got all of that going on, plus you've got that big, you know, growth journey and your hopes to grow your property portfolio, and you're doing it. So, you know,
Yeah.
now you're a resident, now you have 2 properties in New Zealand and 2 back in Brazil. So, you know, you got to count the chickens that you have.
I know.
That
It
have
sounds
hatched.
I know. It sounds so much better when you say it, because
Sometimes you need people to say something back to you, because then you're like, oh, I have done that. But because you probably are talking more about, you know, the next things that you're trying to do. You're always, it's human nature, but you're always looking forward and you're thinking what that next step is.
yeah.
But the other thing about getting to that 180K, because that's massive, How did you actually do that? Obviously, the savings and the situation looks different in Brazil, and it was a smaller amount that you'd need for a deposit, but still, I imagine, hard in terms of the income that you're bringing in. But yeah, what does your kind of financial experience look like saving that amount of money?
Yeah, actually, so when I arrived in New Zealand, I realized that most of my income was going to rent, and I knew that was not sustainable if I wanted to save for a property. So I quickly realized I had to do something different to be able to save. So I rented a 5-bedroom house, and I was subletting by the room. So I was like the head tenant. I would manage everything. And then so I was running, like that was like a side hustle for me. I had to clean the house, make sure everything was running properly, find the right people. So pretty much I didn't have to pay the rent.
So you were the head tenant. This is such an interesting hustle. So did you take on the lease yourself?
Yes. So it's my name.
Yeah, your name, your lease, you have to pay everything and clean it and look after it. But then you sublet it out, and that was allowed in that agreement.
Yeah. So I was allowed in that agreement, which I was very lucky. Not all landlords would be happy to do it, but it was good not just for the landlord because they were still getting the rent, but it was also good for the tenants because usually people would come from overseas. They didn't have bedding, they didn't have furniture. So I had it all set up. I had it all set up. So I got furniture.
So it's like a live-in Airbnb, but you're Airbnb-ing it, and then you're double Airbnb-ing it. That's so interesting that you were able to make that work.
I know. I was just like, well, I have to do something different. So that's where the biggest savings came from. It's very similar to arbitrage that they have in the US, which basically you rent a property from the landlord and then you put on Airbnb and make money out of that renting out.
Yeah, so arbitrage is actually an economic concept, which is like where there's a gap or an opportunity space between what something is being sold for and what you can on sell for, basically. So it could even be like a product where you know that a product is selling in the supermarket. That's what drop shipping is. It's what AliExpress is. It's like when you're able to achieve a purchase at a lower price and then sell it for the market price at a higher rate. And an arbitrage is just the difference in between that and that opportunity and identifying that opportunity. But it's much harder when it comes to actually doing that with leases because a lot of them don't let you. And even Airbnb-ing now, like a lot of the tenancy agreements don't allow you to Airbnb out.
Yeah, so it has changed.
I may have done it before, but not like the full house, but just like, when I...
A bedroom.
My bedroom when I was like away, that kind of thing.
I know.
But yeah, that's so cool that you found that.
Yeah, so that was one of the strategies. And also because when I came from Brazil, I didn't have much. Like my life was really simple. I wouldn't go out. And when I arrived here, it's like I was working so many hours that I didn't have a community.
Life.
I didn't have a social life.
Or any friends.
So if you want to be my friend.
I'll be your friend, Dani.
Thank you, baby. Okay, let's get rich together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, yeah, I didn't have a social life. So I was just like saving on food a lot. So I pretty much had like a goal to save 90% of my income and live on 10%.
90%.
And I managed to do that.
90%. So you're saying 10% went out on expenses and 90% was saved?
Saved, yeah.
That's insane.
It was.
How do you... So, okay, wait. No, wait. So 90% of your income was saved. 10% was on outgoing expenses. The 10% was going on what?
Yeah, so that was basic because the rent was pretty much covered by the arbitrage or the subletting that I was doing. And then it was basically food, but I've improved, but I was like so tight with my money.
Yeah, do you mean improved by actually spending a little bit more? Because I think that's tough. I don't think many of the audience can relate
to that. And I don't think it's healthy to actually sacrifice that much because when I was working hospitality, I would get food from the restaurant. So it's like that meal, and then I usually will eat once a day to save, so I wouldn't actually even go shopping. So food was covered, the rent was covered. And then, I was just trying to find the best deals, go to those, food shops that you can get like bags of food that it's like nearly
In bulk, or
expiring.
it's expiring, yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
that's how I managed to do that. But as soon as I started getting more properties, obviously, I was not able to save as much.
Yeah, no, obviously there's more going out on mortgages and on rates and insurance and the expenses that come with owning property. But that's crazy and amazing to think that you can save 90%. And you found an opportunity by, being able to rent a property that you can then sublet by room to other people so that you don't have to pay the same in rent. And that opportunity might not be available to everyone, but, moving home might be available, or there might be some opportunity. So I think what's important is you looked for those opportunities. You worked out how you could drop your expenses down to the lowest degree I've ever heard of my life. 10%. Like
Starving?
Yeah. Like, I don't know that that's relatable, but still it just does show that, find your opportunities. And your opportunities might not be comfortable, might be really uncomfortable, but maybe it is just a short-term, period of your life, short-term sacrifice for that long-term gain that gets you, that step further on your wealth journey.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think people, as I said before, think that getting the first home is nearly impossible. But when you do engage with the right professionals, or even like a mortgage broker, to start the conversation, you might realize that you're closer than you are.
Then you think,
because right now, well, I don't know, we have so many different schemes, and the deposit potentially for first home buyers usually is not as high. So just talk to someone to see where you're at, and then at least you know the path that you need to follow to get there.
Yeah. On Slice, we have a quiz that you can actually go through. So you just put in what your deposit is or your savings are, whatever that amount is, and then your income, and then it actually outlines what different opportunities might be available to you. So whether it's Kāinga Order, NZ Housing Foundation, any of the
go
different
there
schemes.
now.
But low deposit, and we did a great episode previously as well. We've done it we've brought this up a few times, but basically you can buy with as little as 40 grand, even 20 grand if there's two of you. A 10% deposit on a 500k house is 50 grand. So thinking just lower that barrier to entry, because I think a lot of people think it's 100k or it's more. 500k house, 50 grand deposit, that is possible, or between two of you, 25 grand each. And I think what becomes important out of that is, well, maybe I can't buy a house in this area or in, my dream home with that. No, but you can look at it as an investment. You can buy in a different region. You can buy an apartment or a townhouse. You can, explore your options based on where you're at, and then move and grow with the market so that eventually you can buy, a bigger property in the area you're interested in.
And I always say the first one is always the hardest, because as soon as you get the first one, capital growth or the market that will take care of it, and then you can go and just continue buying.
Then you can leverage off that house to go again. You can do a bunch of different things by, refinancing with a broker. So those opportunities do exist.
They do.
And in terms of your career as well, because obviously the two, your love for property and finance and your experience investing in properties kind of come together nicely. What does that look like for you? Like, how do you help people? Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so after I have done the property management, I started working as a property coach. So
not one that swindles 50 grand out of people.
Not that one. But I was just so passionate about it. I was like, if I can do this full time. So I was helping people on the more active strategy, where you find a great deal, usually in the regions, and then you'll add value to their property through renovations, and then that would naturally increase the capital growth faster than the natural growth that you get in the market or on a new build property. So it's just more like hands-on. And then since I have now got my license, I'm a registered certified financial advisor, and I've been helping people from all the way to budgeting, really simple work, clearing out debt, to building wealth and investing in property. And it's just, so rewarding to see. And you probably have the same feeling with the clients that they come to you, they think it's not possible, and then suddenly they buy their first
It's literally
home.
the best feeling.
The
Like
best.
It is the best when people just think they couldn't. Like with some of those low deposit schemes, we've got people up to 200K outside of
Wow.
bank lending towards their home. So they literally, that 200K can make up the deposit and then some. Generally, you have to at least put 5% in. But, it is possible, and it's so exciting when people actually see that and then execute, and all of a sudden they're a homeowner and they never thought that they could be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You don't know what you don't know. Just so trying to learn through platforms like Slice or just talking to people that have done it before, you realize that you can do it as well. And it's probably, as you say, it's just the best feeling. It's like almost like that dopamine hit that you get from someone else achieving their goals through property. It's quite addicting. So it's like, I want more of this. I want to see more people succeed. Because if I have done it, coming from overseas, anyone else can do it. They just need to know the path to get there, right?
Yeah, and have the right team
around it. I always say it's like the most important thing is just the people that you have around you. And again, you can always read all the books or consume all the social media content, but unless you take that first step, nothing is going to happen, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think there's so much information out there that sometimes you just need it like laid out. And that's what we've tried to do with the Slice software, is actually to step people through, one piece at a time. But yeah, it is team. So you really want the right broker, the right lawyer, the right people in your corner to help you on that journey. With your financial exams, it's just an aside, but now I'm interested thinking about that. What exams? Because can you pick different papers to do to become an advisor?
Yes, you can.
So what papers did you do?
You usually have the core, which every advisor has to take.
And it often is the regulation one, right?
Yeah, the regulation one. So that's like level 5 in finances core. So that's the basic. And then from there, you can choose how you're going to specialize yourself. So you can either do lending, residential lending, which is to become a mortgage broker. You can do investments, which is usually for financial advisors. And then you have insurance. That could be general or personal. So far I have investment and residential lending. I'm not going to tap it into insurance just now. I'm happy with the finance world.
Yeah. We had Blair from Tower on.
Oh, yeah.
And he was great. He actually made it pretty interesting. And it's really interesting now with climate change and everything. But, you don't need to rush into insurance. But it's just interesting hearing that, because I did my papers in 2016, I think.
Yeah.
So a long time ago, and I was a financial advisor then. I'm not currently certified. I could, get my certification, but same with my law degree. I also am not currently practicing. You have to pay
I know,
a few grand a year, and I'm like,
fees involved. And that's the thing, like, you already have the knowledge.
Yeah, I've already done that. I've been acting as a financial advisor. I could do it again, but right now I've got the knowledge, and it's more about building the tech platform, and it costs a couple of grand to keep licenses up to date each year. Yeah. So for both of those, it would be $5,000 for me probably for the year or something.
If you don't necessarily need it, then
no. But interesting to hear what papers you did, because I'd be interested in probably doing more the residential lending one. I did more the investment foreign exchange one, and along with the regulation one, which is my jam. I love the regulation side of things. But it's really cool to hear what papers you
have to go through. It is quite a lot, but
it's important though, because. And this is the thing, as much as I'm saying maybe I shouldn't, in some ways I think I should, or I've at least had those certificates. But you can see a lot of content online, and it's none of, everyone has the disclaimer, it's not financial advice, but some people are kind of openly talking about, budgeting, finance, and they actually haven't even had an accreditation, don't currently have an accreditation, and social media being as it is, people are quite trusting and they do listen to that advice. So I think another thing to remember here is Dani is currently practicing as a financial advisor. So when you're thinking about who to trust when you're consuming online content, consider what their background is. Do they actually have experience working in finance or in law or in property, because it's really easy to sit around the barbecue and have a chat, or to consume something on social media and about someone saying how they've saved X amount of money or made something through affiliate marketing. And it's actually,
I get angry just for listening to it.
So like that's where you get to that 50 grand dropped into a Ponzi scheme
Yes.
situation. So do be careful with the online content that you're consuming. Obviously less important than when you go to execute. But then when you do go to execute, like by all means listen to stuff online, but when you go to execute, you do need to be working with a registered broker, a registered lawyer, and we have those on the platform. So while I'm not currently practicing, we have those partners. You have that expertise, and do make sure that, you're careful and selective about who you're talking to, because a lot of people even come on this podcast and say, talk to your friends, talk to your family, and I'm like,
Don't.
maybe don't, or do, but take it with a grain of salt. Like make sure that you are actually qualifying the people that are giving you advice for such a massive investment, because it's dangerous out there.
It is. And everyone will always have an opinion about what you're doing.
And that opinion could be based on their circumstances, not on yours.
And experience as well, and limiting beliefs. And I talk to clients every day that they come with a baggage that even like it could have like cultural impact. Like for me, I come from a scarcity mindset, so it could have led my choices, and I would just be too scared.
Yeah, if you hadn't done kind of the work to understand that you have that, then you could start pumping out a bunch of content saying you need to be conservative and save your money, instead of saying, actually, I don't necessarily recommend that, and actually asking you, the individual, questions to identify your mindset, your circumstances, and providing advice on that basis. So this is very much, this podcast, everything that we pump out and everything that you see on social media is generalized content, and it's not specific to your circumstances, which is why it's so important that when you do go further on this journey, that you engage with the right partners who will ask you questions. If they're not asking you questions, they're not the right partner, because they need to understand your views, your mindset, your limiting beliefs, your circumstances before giving you any advice.
Yeah, and it's quite easy, and I've been there when I paid for that course, to be persuaded by someone that just comes and say, hey, I have made this much. And sometimes I have to say that I get a bit upset because content that's not sexy, that if I actually would go out there tomorrow and say I made $1 billion doing this, people would like and share. But when you talk about reality, it's just like it don't get as much engagement. So just be very careful.
On property, on people's profiles who are doing property, I often see X million dollars worth of houses, and I'm like, I could say that easily, and 80% of it is debt. So so you need to be really careful with what's being presented, and be critical when you are consuming content online. But at the end of the day, as long as when you do go to execute, you get the right team, qualified team members, a financial advisor or broker supporting you, and a lawyer supporting you, then you'll be fine.
I always say to my clients, the first person you have to talk to is the lawyer, and then
I like you, Jenny.
It is true, because it's so much that you need to know even before you buy the property that people don't understand. It's like, what ownership structure you want to have, what are the impacts of doing it. If you already have the property under contract and you want to change the ownership structure, it might trigger bright line. So it's just like, I'm probably saying just things that you can't even, like, not everyone will relate, but there are things that you don't even should know, but you should have someone
that
on your
does
side.
know.
Yeah,
and a lot of time, like when we started out, a lot of our buyers coming through were making offers, doing it, bidding at auction, and then they didn't have that lawyer ready or involved. And so it's really important, you're right, that early engagement, so that they know your circumstances and they can protect you, because the lawyer is the only partner that you'll pay mostly. Sometimes you do give some funds to a financial advisor or broker, other times the bank pays them. But the lawyer you pay, and what happens when you pay? You receive a service. So they are in your corner, they are protecting you, and that's what's so important. And that's what we try to do through Slices, engage you with those lawyers at the right time, but also we give you fixed fees, so you don't have to worry about hourly rates and things creeping. You just know that you've got that support. But it's interesting that you say that, and I know, because we we've worked with some of the same clients, and you will say, oh, there's this ownership structure thing here.
Yeah.
And we have information even on the platform that can support with that. But then when you really start to get into the detail, you need that lawyer there to support.
Yeah. And I think you were so right. Like, even like going back to the content and everything, if there was like one last tip that I could give is that you will always see different strategies out there. So you can do a million different things in the property world. And when you're a first home buyer as well, it can get quite overwhelming. But it's just important to realize that first, it's almost like you need to give a step back and understand, why are you doing this? What's the goal you're trying to achieve?
Your circumstances.
Your age, how much deposit that you have, even the region that you live in, as well as like how much do you have on your KiwiSaver. And then based on that, talk to the professionals. They will tell you how much you can afford, and then
what strategies might be applicable for you.
To you, yeah. Because if you start trying to pick a strategy and then go from there, it might not work, and that's when things go really wrong. So everyone has a different journey and in a process, a place where they are right now. So don't try to do everything at the same time.
And don't just blindly follow what someone else has done.
Is done. Yeah. And don't feel like because usually we compare ourselves to everyone else. I do to this day. Like, I see people that are like 25, younger than me, and they have 10 properties, and they say, I'm financially feels like, I feel like a failure. But to be honest, everyone has a different path, and you have to
don't know
that.
whether, you don't know what their bank balance looked like at the start, or, what it looks like now. Some things you see on social media, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. They might have 10 properties and all of them and they're over leveraged, and they're going to have to sell one. So you don't know actually what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. So keep that in mind. But it's been great having you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. We're going to finish with our last question, which is, if I think we'll say current home, in the basement of your current home, if it had a doorbell and that doorbell played a theme song, what would it play?
Oh, what would it play? Gosh, that's a great question. That's just cliche, but it will probably be a Dua Lipa song, because I love her and I find that she's so empowered. And every time,
show up. Don't go out.
Don't stop letting me.
She's playing at Glastonbury, which I meant to be going well with the platform and things that we need to do. Yeah. But I might be seeing her live in July. So
she is. I've been to her concert and it's just amazing. And it's just like, even like what you do, seeing more women out there talking about property, talking about finance, and all the girls and the women out there. It's just lovely to see more people like feeling represented.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Thank you for joining our community. Buying property isn't easy, but listening in will get you one step closer on your journey. Please leave an Apple or Spotify review and provide feedback so we can improve your experience. Join our Facebook group, A Safe Space to Learn Together, or follow us on Instagram at @slicetobuy. If you have any questions or topics you would like us to touch on, you can email us at hello@slicetobuy.com. A quick reminder, Slice the podcast does not provide personalised investment advice. We are not acting as financial advisors or taking into account your circumstances. To get personalised advice, join us at slicetobuy.com and engage with our partners who can act as your financial advisor or lawyer and support you with your specific needs.